Okay. So, that video explained the basics of chiaroscuro in not only painting, which is the traditional art form, but also in film and photography. Briefly, it mentioned the Renaissance. Well, just to make sure, let me ask you guys if you guys understand what chiaroscuro is. It's kind of a hard word to say. It's an Italian word. They did mention that, and then we'll talk about where that word came from. SB, do you think you get the concept of chiaroscuro? Or what it means?
Not necessarily what it means, but like more visually.
Visually? Okay. Rylan, what about you?
Yeah, well, churro is like the Latin root for light, and then obscuro means obscure or darkness. So it's like really just the contrast, bright lights to bright lights contrasted with light darks. So like emphasize either one or the other.
Exactly. Yeah. To get contrast, we talked about this in some of my other classes. It's almost comparing something against each other. And so the best contrast is from one extreme to the other, right? So if you think about in ideas or politics, think about liberals versus, okay, so you kind of got it. So liberals versus conservatives, right? And sometimes that translates in our country to, what was the word you used? Oh, you said Republicans? Republicans versus Democrats, right? And chiaroscuro actually developed in the time of the Renaissance, where a lot of ideas and politics were changing. Like they were coming out of the Middle Age into this whole new like rebirth, right? So the whole Europe, it started out in like what was called the Dark Ages, and then you had the Middle Ages where there were like religious wars and stuff. So people were
They worship like pagan gods versus coming into like Christianity.
right. So I would think the Dark Ages is where a lot of the paganism was, and then during the Middle Ages when they were having these religious wars, the Crusades and stuff like that, that was more of the Middle Ages. But now we're kind of like past that, right? So we have.
But, there's still like religious wars going on.
Oh, it is. That will never stop.
Yeah.
Humans are always gonna find a way to. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see that South Park episode where like everybody becomes atheist and they like still have wars? They're doing like diagnostics.
No, I didn't. Exactly. Yeah, there's always going to be disagreements and people who feel like they have to fight or die for what they believe in. So, if you think about the ideas of darkness going into light, right? This is supposed enlightenment. A lot of science is being embraced, starting to be embraced. Some of the science was seen as like witchcraft, and people like really suspicious of it. So if you look up here, this is. Does anybody know who created this?
Leonardo da Vinci.
That's right, Leonardo da Vinci. And not only was he an artist, he was great in like
He's a genius.
he was a genius. I agree.
Didn't he get like under house arrest because they thought he was like trying to like calling the Bible a liar?
Yeah, yeah. Him and a lot of other people. So when you get new ideas and when you try to change the system, people get scared, right? The people in the system who run the system. And so at this time, Some people call it the European Renaissance. Some people call it the Italian Renaissance. So you could say that it started in Italy because that's where who knows who's famous, who lives in Italy even to this day and kind of helps run the world. Even undercurrents, like we think of
Pope.
the Pope. Thank you.
We're doing
So the
Pope,
church.
he lives in the Vatican.
Well, the Vatican. Thank you. His own country. Thanks for correcting me, Rylan. So the what we now call the Vatican, right? They ran the world because they ran the Catholic Church. Okay, and a lot of when it trickles down is seen as religion, but up here where it starts is mostly just what politics, money, greed.
Popes were like kings, and like historically, a lot of them were
More
pretty
powerful
evil.
than kings.
Oh yeah, they were pretty evil too. I mean, there was like some. They were not holy people historically. They were like kind of orgies, drinking wine all the time.
There's a lot going on with the religious people who ran the world, more than we know. So they're a little bit different from like what we know here in America as like a minister or a pastor. Like they had a lot of power, a lot of influence, a lot of money. Like kings listen to them. So like a king will run like one country, right? But the Pope, how many people are following him even to this day? Like all over the world, right? So
The amount of money that the Vatican probably has, I mean, like through art, through probably hitting gold, I mean,
Yes.
they're probably one of the richest countries in the world.
No.
And the smallest one.
many people believe that they are
Yeah.
the richest and the most powerful, even to this day, the Vatican. So part of all this was the Medici family. Okay, they were patrons. They were rich. They were religious. They were political. Okay, and one of the things that they did was to fund their ideas, to get their ideas to spread. They would hire artists. So I don't know if we talked about this in this class or was it the other class. You guys know what a patron is? Not a patron saint, but okay. So a patron in artwork is somebody who basically pays for you to create. Okay, so let's say you want to spread the ideas of the Enlightenment. You're going to find artists who want to paint or sculpt, because basically those are the only two art forms in. Yes, they're gonna spread the idea of Enlightenment. So look up here. This is I think this one's in the Vatican. I don't have my notes on it.
Jesus and Adam, right?
This is Adam. You got that part right.
That's God.
And who's this? That's God. And so this is like the creation of Adam, right? And then you have the angels. But a lot of people say this has a hidden meaning. That does this look like anything to you? Let me show you guys something really quick. Oh my gosh. Oh! My brain. There we go. Okay. So, the creation of Adam. Alright, look at this picture here. You see something right there? Okay. So a lot of people think that, okay, so let me go back to so we have two people here. We have Da Vinci and Michelangelo. Two of the Ninja Turtles, right? You guys know who the Ninja Turtles were named after? 4 Italian Renaissance artists. Okay, so both of these artists were geniuses, right? They did a lot more than paint or draw. They had some ideas. So some people say this looks like a brain. It was made in a brain. See the brain stem right there? And that it points to enlightenment. Let me go back to that picture so you guys can see. Okay, here we go. So I don't know if it's true, but it looks really, really like that's true.
I mean,
Okay.
I think it kind of represents a lot of like what I believe that like the divine is in all of us.
I agree with you.
I've really seen personally, I've seen religion, just all religions in general, not just this one, but I've seen it as like an idea.
Yeah, I
Like
think-
someone came up with the idea.
All the religions kind of have like central themes. I mean, if you look at any religion, they all have central themes. It's a code, and it's just different people's interpretations. So,
Yeah, to explain the unexplainable, to
Okay.
just how to live life. I mean, people need a code of some sort. But yeah, I mean, I like Hermeticism a lot. Like as above, so below. Everything that happens in the spiritual realm is also happening in our plane. That's the representation of it.
I agree. I agree with you. Okay, so these two guys, they were right in the middle of the height of the Renaissance. So that's where we get into the artistic Renaissance, because everything that happens here, where we are, it gets represented right in the art world, right? And so this is one of the things that happens. This is Caravaggio. If you remember, they showed a number of his paintings. Oh, I didn't write his name on there. Uh-oh, bad Shieka. I should have wrote the names of those paintings. Yes.
Have you seen, it was right before the Renaissance, like, it was one of the, like, last paintings of the Dark Ages, it was, it's called Hell, it was like, I was just wondering if you've seen it, it was like,
Yes.
I saw it in person, it was a beautiful drawing, I just wanted to.
It actually came from a writing that explains. Thank you, Dante's Inferno.
Like, it's so crazy because that painting was meant to scare people away, and it's like, it was meant to, like, put fear into people, and, like, it was a really cool way to see how people created fear.
When we were at the at the Women's Museum, it took all of my willpower not to start looking at the old Dante's Inferno's copies because
Oh, do they have those there?
Yeah.
You know those books are original to the house.
Yeah, that's. I wanted to look through them so bad. I mean, she said they were actually illustrated because I was looking for an illustrated copy of it just for like tattoo ideas.
Okay.
I tried to read it when I was like in like 4th or 5th grade, and like, I didn't get a lot out of it. But
I wouldn't think so. Not in 4th or 5th grade. But yeah, you should look on eBay or just Google. Maybe you'll find an old copy. Okay, so here's 3 words that have to do with each other: Chiaroscuro, Tenebrism, and Sfumato. Now, to me, they basically mean the same thing. Okay, so you see examples of the dark darks and the light lights. Okay. Tenebrism is basically the same thing. It's just named after an artist. Sfumato. It's like saying something. Okay, it's like if you said light, bright, and white. You know what I'm saying? They're very similar. But if you look, a lot of these pictures at the time, they have a religious theme. So here you have Jesus and the soldiers taking him away. Well, you also have Jesus here. See baby Jesus? And looks like Mary and Joseph right here. So you see how dark Joseph is back there? Uh-huh. And then how bright the baby Jesus is. And see the light shining on their faces from baby Jesus. Now, do you think that is a coincidence? No. So in both idea, religious ideas, spirituality, and in, I guess you could say, the physical, Jesus and Christians are supposed to be a light that shines on people, showing them the way, showing them the right way. And you can literally see that in this picture. That's where you get the ideas of. So then, could a lot of people read and write then?
No.
Almost no one could, except for.
The rich, the ones that are like have enough money for school.
Mm-hmm.
There was like, I mean, we think there's like a wealth of consistency now. Back then, I mean, it was you were royalty or rich from business, or you were a peasant. There was no middle class. There was just peasants.
Mm-hmm.
And the rich.
Yeah, right now we're blessed with a time where there's a great middle class, which came after, after like the 1920s, after the Depression, when things started getting industrialized. People could go to work for money, and they didn't have to like work for pennies just from the rich people. So, the religious people could read. And so they would have these pictures. That's why in all the big old churches, they had lots of illustrations, whether it was sculptures on the outside, right? Whether it was gargoyles, showing that this is a place of protection. A lot of kids don't understand gargoyles. It's like, that's ugly, and why would you? No. Yeah.
Has a gargoyles poster signed by the artists and the illustrators, like from the cartoon.
Oh yeah, I remember that cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh, you kind of old school. How you know about all this stuff? Right. So, things like this is how people remembered the story. So first they would tell them the stories verbally, which is how things have been done since the beginning of time. Just now, well, I'll say just now, but a little bit after this, when people started learning how to read, reading became more of the way that people learn. But for most of history, it was through verbal, right, and pictorial. So those things together. So this image is more than just, oh, cute baby Jesus. It's saying this is the way. This is how you get out of the darkness, right? Okay. Now, unfortunately, as beautiful as those stories are, there were some ulterior motives. So some people say, oh, I don't like religion because the people who spread religion did bad things. But if you think of like that hammer right there, okay, that's a tool. I can build a house for good, right? I could go and build a homeless shelter, or I could do something crazy like that crazy guy who tried to kill Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer, right? It's just a tool. So
I mean, art is a tool as much as it's entertainment. I mean,
exactly.
Movies now.
Even if it's entertainment, it's still a tool.
Yeah, I mean, like in the 80s, all those action movies, they're always killing Russians, they're always killing our enemies. I mean, it's instilling ideas in the populace. It's a different way to manipulate people.
Whenever you do watch a movie, it's like, at the end, it's like, okay, well, what was the lesson? And the lesson is what you keep with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And you should always ask yourself that. So even we have a whole bunch of stupid commercials, right? Think of a commercial as a mini film. Ask what the purpose is, because if you don't ask those questions, you'll be swayed this way and that way and not be conscious of what people are trying to use as a tool in your life to manipulate you, to convince you.
I've always analyzed everything. I think when you watch the think the only smart way to look life is analyze everything. Whether it's real knowledge.
I agree. Okay, now, chiaroscuro. What does it mean?
Contrast. Light. Dark versus light.
There you go. Contrast. Let's say extreme contrast of light. Yes. Okay. So you see an example here. Okay. You see some really good examples here. Now these are examples of things that you guys need to get on your list. I think you have something like an animal. You have some outside. You have things where you have to get lines and shapes, right? What was the period of time that chiaroscuro became a popular art form?
Renaissance.
The Renaissance, good. Okay. And what's the basic premise of the Renaissance?
The ushering in of Christianity really changed.
Evolution of some sort.
It's a continuation of Christianity, but I don't want you to focus on Christianity. It is a changing time. Think of kind of like the Enlightenment, right? So you have this rebirth of the times. You have new ideas coming in, okay? Culturally, artistically, politically, and economically. So some things start changing around there. Okay.